By the age of 23, Mark Zuckerberg became the world's youngest self-made billionaire ever. How did Mark make the transition from a sophomore at Harvard University to a multi-billionaire? Let's find out. Zuckerberg was born on May 14, 1984 in White Plains, New York. He was raised in a Reform Jewish household and had a Star Wars-themed bar mitzvah when he turned 13. That's not really relevant to the story, but I thought it was worth pointing out. At Ardsley High School, Zuckerberg excelled in classes. After 2 years, he transferred to the private school Phillips Exeter Academy, where he won prizes in mathematics, astronomy, physics, and classical studies. In his youth, he also attended the Johns Hopkins Center for Talented Youth Summer Camp. On his college application, Zuckerberg stated that he could read and write in French, Hebrew, Latin, and Ancient Greek. He was also captain of the fencing team. Zuckerberg began using computers and build software in middle school. His father taught him first, and he later turned to a private tutor. He would build video games at the time. Zuckerberg himself recalls this period. "I had a bunch of friends who were artists," he said. "They'd come over, draw stuff, and I'd build a game out of it." During Zuckerberg's high school years, he worked under the company name Intelligent Media Group to build a music player called the Synapse Media Player. The device used machine learning to learn the user's listening habits. This project received a rating of 3 out of 5 from PC Magazine. Zuckerberg was accepted to Harvard University and studied psychology and computer science. In his sophomore year, he wrote a program called Course Match. This would allow users to make class selection decisions based on the choices of other students and also help them form study groups. A short time later, he created a different program he initially called FaceMash. The website was set up as a type of quote-unquote hot or not game for Harvard students. It allowed visitors to compare two student pictures side by side and let them decide who was more attractive. According to the Harvard Crimson, the university's newspaper, FaceMash used photos compiled from the online Facebooks of 9 houses, placing 2 next to each other at a time and asking users to choose the hotter person. FaceMash attracted 450 visitors and 22,000 photo views in its first 4 hours online. The site went up over a weekend, but was shut down by Monday morning due to its popularity that had overwhelmed one of the Harvard's network switches and prevented students from accessing the internet. In addition, many students complained that their photos were being used without permission. Zuckerberg faced expulsion and was charged by the administration with breach of security, violating copyrights, and violating individual privacy. Ultimately, the charges were dropped. Zuckerberg apologized publicly for the website. Every university at the time had a student directory featuring photos and basic information called a Facebook. In 2003, there were no universal online Facebooks at Harvard. Regarding this issue, Zuckerberg told the Crimson, "I think it's kind of silly that it would take the university a couple of years to get around to it. I can do it better than they can, and I can do it in a week." In January 2004, Zuckerberg began writing code for a new website known as The Facebook. Zuckerberg met with Harvard student Eduardo Saverin, and each of them agreed to invest $1,000 in the site. On February 4th, 2004, Zuckerberg launched it under the name The Facebook. Within 24 hours, the site had somewhere between 12 to 1,500 registrants. Zuckerberg also stated his intention to create a universal website that could connect people around the university. Just 6 days after the site launched, 3 Harvard University seniors, Cameron and Tyler Winklevoss and Divya Narendra, accused Zuckerberg of intentionally misleading them into believing that he would help them build a social network called HarvardConnection.com, but instead used their idea to build a competing product. The 3 complained to the Crimson, and the newspaper began an investigation. Mark found out about the investigation and was not content to wait and find out if the Crimson would publish the story. Instead, he decided to access the email accounts of Crimson editors and review their emails. How did he do this? Here's how Mark described his hack to a friend. Mark used his site, thefacebook.com, to look up members of the site who identified themselves as members of the Crimson. Then he examined a log of failed logins to see if any of the Crimson members had ever entered an incorrect password into thefacebook.com. In the cases in which they had entered failed logins, Mark tried to use them to access the Crimson members' Harvard email accounts. And guess what? He successfully accessed 2 of them. Now, of course, the event that I just described would be a direct violation of Facebook's current policy, but the policy was not in place at the time. In the end, 3 Crimson members filed a lawsuit against Zuckerberg, which was later settled. Now, let's get back to Facebook. Initially, membership was restricted to students of Harvard University. Within the first month, more than half the undergraduate population at Harvard were registered under the service. Zuckerberg was joined in the promotion of the site by his fellow roommates Edward Savern, Dustin Moskovitz, Andrew McCollum, and Chris Hughes, who are all considered co-founders of Facebook. In March 2004, Facebook expanded to Stanford, Columbia, and Yale. This expansion continued when it opened to all Ivy League and Boston area schools and eventually reached most universities in the United States and Canada. Facebook was incorporated in the summer of 2004, and the entrepreneur Sean Parker, who had been informally advising Zuckerberg, became the company's president. In June 2004, Facebook moved its base of operations to Palo Alto, California, and in 2005, the company officially changed their name after dropping the from its name and purchasing the domain name Facebook.com for $200,000. From here on, Facebook started growing exponentially, starting from colleges all over the world, moving to high schools and then businesses like Apple and Microsoft. Eventually, in September 2006, Facebook opened up to everyone over the age of 13 with a valid email address. Facebook received funds along the way to help grow the company. Just to show how fast the company grew, let's take a look at some of the funds received. The first fund received at 2004 was a $500,000 investment from Peter Thiel, who's an entrepreneur and venture capitalist. That got him 10.2% of the company's shares, valuating the company at a little less than $5 million. By 2007, Microsoft purchased only 1.6% of Facebook shares for, are you sitting down? An astounding price of $240 million, valuing the company at $15 billion. In 2010, Stephen Levi wrote that Zuckerberg clearly thinks of himself as a hacker. Zuckerberg said that it's okay to break things to make them better. Facebook would use to institute hackathons held every 6 to 8 weeks, where participants would have one night to conceive of and complete a project. The company provided music, food, and beer at the hackathons, and many Facebook staff members, including Zuckerberg himself, regularly attended. The idea was that you could build something really good in a night. That's part of the personality of Facebook. It's definitely very core to my personality, said Zuckerberg. Facebook filed for an initial public offering on February 1st, 2012. The document announced that the company had 845 million active monthly users and its website featured 2.7 billion daily likes and comments. After the IPO, Zuckerberg retains a 22% ownership share in Facebook and owns 57% of voting shares. Underwriters valued the shares at $38 each, pricing the company at $104 billion, the largest valuation to date for a newly public company. On May 16th, a day before the IPO, Facebook announced that it would sell 25% more shares than originally planned due to high demand. The IPO raised $16 billion, making it the third largest in US history and 11th largest of all time. One of the most interesting aspects of Zuckerberg's leadership in Facebook, and probably the reason Facebook as a company kept growing and maintained to eliminate competition over the years, are the acquisitions the company's made. Let's reflect over some of the major ones. April 2012, Facebook acquired photo sharing service Instagram for approximately $1 billion in cash and stock. February 2014, Facebook announced its acquisition of WhatsApp, a smartphone instant messaging application, for $19 billion in stock and cash. The acquisition is the most ever paid for a venture capital-backed startup. March 2014, Facebook announced that they acquired virtual reality startup Oculus VR for $2 billion in cash and stock. Facebook eventually became the biggest social media company in the world and remained there ever since. So, wow, quite the career this guy had so far, right? But there's still one more aspect worth hearing about Mark. It's pretty obvious to say he's an incredible entrepreneur and businessman, but does it end there? Well, not at all. Zuckerberg receives a $1 salary as CEO of Facebook. In June 2016, Business Insider named him one of the top 10 business visionaries creating value for the world, with names like Elon Musk and Sal Khan. The same year, his wife and himself pledged to give away 99% of their wealth throughout their lifetime, which was estimated at $55 billion. Mark and his wife are great philanthropists. In 2013, they topped the list of the Chronicle of Philanthropy magazine's annual list of 50 most generous Americans, having donated roughly $1 billion to charity. Most recently, as a response to the raging coronavirus pandemic, Zuckerberg donated $25 million to a Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation-backed accelerator that is searching for treatments for the disease. So guys, there you have it. This is everything you need to know about the internet entrepreneur and philanthropist that is Mark Zuckerberg. An extraordinarily complex person who, on the one hand, has been a part of many controversies and lawsuits, but on the other hand, is one of the most innovative businessmen and generous philanthropists in the world. Guys, if you enjoyed this video, make sure to give it a like and subscribe to this channel for more content like this. If you take the time in your day to learn about these great and successful people, you are moving yourself one step closer to becoming successful. One step closer to becoming a better you. Oh, and real quick before I forget, Mark Zuckerberg's net worth right now is $75.6 billion. Yeah, I know.